Welcome to the Fast Food Legend podcast. My name is Sam, and every week I will be sharing with you my latest essays about fast food. There is a brief silence between each essay. If you like my podcast, please subscribe, like, and most importantly, share it with someone else you think would like it. Thank you for your continued support of my work. Here is today's episode. Under the clinically benevolent light of a Pizza Hut dining room, one finds a surprising theater of restraint. Rows of booths, upholstered in patterned vinyl of vague postmodernist ambition, face each other with the quiet symmetry of a non-place, where design speaks less to taste than to the avoidance of discomfort. The interior is a model of what Marc Auger would call supermodernity, transient, interchangeable, at once nowhere and everywhere. The decor, in its half-hearted attempt at cheer, calls to mind the industrial fabric works of Paolozzi contemporary Stephen Willits, who in the 1970s explored the aesthetics of social systems and behavioral architecture. Willits's interest in the functional graphic as a language of control resonates uncannily here, in the repetitive motifs meant to stimulate without engaging, to soothe without inviting. These booth fabrics, arcs and loops in muted primaries, bear faint echoes of Sylvia Slay's lesser-known textile designs from the early 1960s, in which feminist pattern emerged beneath bourgeois respectability. Here, though, any potential for subversion is vacuum-sealed, scrubbed into corporate neutrality. The layout is almost authoritarian in its rationalism. Metal frame chairs, light birch veneer, and standardized table sizes perform a low-stakes choreography of spatial discipline. One is reminded of the installation logic of Mark Kamil Kaimovich, whose hybrid domestic environments in the 1970s blurred the lines between home decor and conceptual art. Yet unlike Kaimovich, who invites the viewer to inhabit fantasy, Pizza Hut offers only the fantasy of choice: booth or table, soda or water, eat in or carry out. Then there are the pendant lamps, red, drooping, optimistic. They aspire to intimacy, but fail gracefully. Ron Gorchov's saddle-shaped canvases come to mind, bold, curving, somehow unresolved. The lamps, too, gesture towards something rounded and warm, but hang instead like icons of a bygone belief in design's moral mission. In sum, this Pizza Hut achieves a kind of anti-aesthetic perfection, an artless space so rigorously pruned of individuality that it becomes a mirror to systems far larger than any franchise menu. It is the ghost of Bauhaus utopianism, filtered through the pragmatism of fast food real estate, and that, unexpectedly, is where the art lives. Here, on a speckled faux granite laminate, sits one of late capitalism's most iconic edible ready-mades, the McDonald's Chicken McNugget. 8 golden units in their whiteboard clasped carton, flanked by 2 sweet and sour packets, squat on the table like mass-produced relics of a culture obsessed with both uniformity and indulgence. One cannot ignore the formal echoes of Bernd and Hillebecker here. The grid-like regularity of nugget shape, industrial, indifferent, mirrors the Becher's typologies of water towers and blast furnaces. It's a study in modularism. But whereas the Bechers presented their subjects in stark grayscale rigor, the McNuggets bask in the warm tones of fast food lighting, a color temperature engineered to seduce. The sauce packets are not merely condiments, they are textual objects. Their neon green sheen and tightly typeset ingredients panel suggest a conceptual flirtation with Jenny Holzer, information overload as aesthetic. High fructose corn syrup reads like an accidental truism, a truth too bold to be satire. That this language is printed on a viscous portal to flavor only deepens the irony. Read first, dip later. The open carton, slightly crushed, reveals a delicate interplay of form and collapse. Its blank whiteness alludes to Robert Ryman's late works, or even Kazuo Shiraga, if one imagines the sauce as an action painting about to be smeared across surface. Here, however, the gesture is not spiritual, but procedural. You dip, you chew, you repeat. It's performance, with calories. The tabletop, a busy faux granite pattern, evokes the surfaces of Daniel Buren's in situ works, where context is never neutral. Its mottled chaos pushes back against the sterility of the packaging, reminding us that McDonald's is never only about food. It is architecture. It is ritual. It is empire rendered edible. In its totality, the image performs the function of a post-consumer still life, hovering somewhere between the Dutch Golden Age and a stock photo asset folder. But where the vanitous paintings of 17th century Flanders meditated on mortality via rotting fruit and snuffed candles, this composition speaks of entropy deferred, flash frozen, breaded, and deep fried. To paraphrase Alan McCollum, who once created hundreds of individually indistinguishable surrogates, the power lies not in the object's uniqueness, but in its reproducibility. The McNugget, like McCollum's work, is important precisely because it refuses to change. And that finally is what makes it sublime. This Del Taco interior functions like a pressure chamber for transactional ritual, honed for throughput and calibrated to suppress friction. Color zones the space rather than decorating it. Acidic green for produce, heat-treated rust for protein, beige laminate as the corporate neutral connective tissue. Every surface works toward compression, toward decision. The ceiling angles down in sharp asymmetric planes, as if the building itself were leaning forward to speed things along. Fluorescent panels glare overhead in an institutional white, while a track of black spotlights runs across the menu board like a theatrical afterthought. The lighting is overspecified, one system reinforcing the other, not in harmony, but in strategic redundancy, surveillance-level brightness calibrated for both visual clarity and urgency. The menu is a vertical scroll of caloric options: breakfast, burritos, quesadillas, tacos, funnel cake fries. The language is engineered for maximal contrast and instant legibility. Fonts stack and shout. Images pulse with manufactured saturation, their glossy textures closer to print advertising than cuisine. Each item becomes a poster, a flashcard of desire. The taco is no longer food, but icon, codified and lit like a product on a trade show plinth. The counter stretches in laminate and polycarbonate, a material choreography of barrier and function. Its length is generous but impersonal, the slight inward angle of its surface designed not to welcome but to organize. A small, now hiring placard speaks in the same graphic urgency as the menu itself. Labor as a bullet point. Behind it, the food production zone is open and overlit, exposing a grid of monitors, touchscreens, trays, bags, and branding. Above the kitchen line, a security camera is mounted high and unbothered. Its presence is casual, unhidden, woven seamlessly into the visual architecture. It watches not with suspicion, but with procedural detachment, another node in a network designed for maximum accountability. Nearby, a yellow sandwich board warning sign reads, "Caution, wet floor," its exclamation rendered less urgent by its ubiquity. Here, danger is part of the set dressing, a prop in the choreography of liability. On the far left, a lone customer stands before the drink station, awaiting an unremarkable ceremony. His stillness provides the only moment of spatial hesitation. Around him, Everything is hardwired for acceleration. The flooring simulates wood grain and ceramic tile, staggered in familiar, default formatting. Warm but not soft, it conjures a domestic fiction, a farmhouse echo, repeated until drained of association. Near the register, a single receipt or napkin flutters on the floor. Its presence breaks the surface control of the space with something almost tender, a dropped thought. To the right, a mural of brand words, avocado, salsa, fresh, scatters across the wall in a tone-on-tone decal. These terms do not advertise ingredients, but reinforce atmosphere. They are ambient affirmations, a visual mulch of edible suggestion. This is not a space of hospitality, but of controlled throughput. Every material decision reinforces a closed circuit of intention. Enter, point, transact, exit. It is not a dining room. It is an interface. A channel for edible syntax designed to be legible at 5 feet and forgotten 5 minutes later. A system not built for permanence, but for return. It's tempting to write off Raising Cane's, a fried chicken chain that's become Gen Z's Chick-fil-A, as just another stylized fast food box. But this interior reveals something far more choreographed, a spatial collage that blends kitsch Americana with a faint echo of installation art, wrapped in Instagram-era performativity. Here, spectacle is the seasoning. The disco balls, suspended from inset rings in a checkerboard wood tile ceiling, are absurdist interventions, glam elements without irony, reverent to their role as sculptural lighting. Their visual incongruity is striking, and in that contrast, one hears faint reverberations of Michelangelo Pistoletto's mirror paintings, where viewers are drawn into unexpected juxtapositions of reflection, consumerism, and theatricality. But unlike Pistoletto, Cannes makes no critical gesture. It simply invites the selfie. The color-coded chairs, turquoise, yellow, walnut-stained plywood, form a kind of serial installation. Their calculated mismatch echoes the strategies of Jessica Stockholder, whose polychromatic assemblages exploit furniture logic to blur the lines between formal sculpture and functional objects. Yet here, the variation is corporate rather than chaotic. Stockholder, as dictated by an Excel spreadsheet. The floor tile insert beneath the communal table is almost quaint, a decorative border of Moorish-influenced pattern interrupting an otherwise clean expanse of matte porcelain. This gesture of faux handmade craft feels like a nod to Francis Alice, particularly his subtle interventions in pedestrian space. The tile isn't necessary, it's symbolic. It signifies place in a place designed to be placeless. On the wall, the mural reads, "Eat and be happy," in brushy red script, beside retro signage and clapperboard props. The mural functions like a James Rosenquist fragment, blown up typography as consumer imperative. The wall text recalls Barbara Kruger without the dissent. Its graphic command is benevolence, mood-board sincerity in place of critique. Over the windows, the phrase, "What are you, chicken?" sprawls in a deliberately corny, faux rustic type. This insistence on linguistic play places the restaurant closer to the graphic installation works of K. Rosen, but again, declawed. Where Rosen investigates the architecture of language, Keynes co-opts it for branded whimsy. The entire space is choreographed for optics. It invites scanning, photographing, hashtagging. You don't just eat at Keynes, you document having eaten. The interiors are not about design in the traditional sense, but about the effective environment of the chain, a constructed vibrancy, where even the disorder is curated. This is not a dining room, it is an algorithmic mise-en-scène, where the semiotics of comfort food meet the aesthetics of social capital. The closest historical analog may not be a fast food forebear, but rather Andrea Fraser, who once described her institutional critique works as asking, not what it means, but what it does. Raising Cane's doesn't mean anything, but it does something. And what it does is perform happiness. For the camera, for the feed, for you. If the 7-Eleven Cubano grill press sandwich was a pastiche of late capitalist formalism, the 7-Eleven bacon, egg, and cheese with everything is its prequel, an edible preamble to the day's delusions. Nestled in the refrigerated morgue of convenience, this sandwich clings to its vernacular roots like a Raymond Carver character, forlorn, overburdened, and quietly grotesque. At first glance, the sandwich is cloaked in the populist camouflage of the everything bagel, though technically it's a potato bun, suggesting a symbolic bait and switch. The bun's surface, speckled with sesame, poppy, and onion flake, could be read as a deconstructed index of 20th century mass culture, chaos rebranded as flavor. It recalls the gestural scrawl of Cy Twombly, but made digestible, literally. Inside, the triad of American breakfast essentials, bacon, egg, and cheese, are rendered as symbols rather than sustenance. The bacon is barely a whisper, the egg a rubberized approximation of intention. The American cheese and cream cheese spread merge with an alchemical indifference that evokes early Rauschenberg, if his combines had been laminated and microwaved. This sandwich isn't just a product, it's a cultural timestamp. At $4.99 and 136 grams, it offers the illusion of a full American breakfast, shrunk to fit the pacing of post-industrial labor. The heating time, 30 seconds, is printed like a performance directive, reducing breakfast to a ritualized flash of acceleration. This isn't slow food, it's edible urgency. There is something haunting in the sandwich's implicit optimism. It tries in its prefab sincerity to offer comfort, yet the very idea of everything in such a compact, constrained package borders on the absurd. It asks, can abundance be curated in a 4.8-ounce net weight? Ultimately, the sandwich is a McLuhan-esque artifact. The medium is the message, and the medium is heat-sealed plastic. It is a dream of plenitude reimagined as processable foodstuff, and in that, it serves not just breakfast, but commentary. Thank you again for watching the podcast and supporting my work. Don't forget to subscribe and share this podcast with someone else you think may enjoy it.